So today in this painting, I am doing a raven. Yes, if you know me, I love me some ravens. Some corvid, as they are. They're quite intelligent and, yeah, ominous birds. So I wanted to do something a little more illustrated, like I've been doing, but I mean, I wanted it to be a little bit more, I guess, a little more traditional looking, even though I start out with like a comic-like effect. I usually start these pieces like this, where I draw it and then I ink it up. And of course, by ink it, I mean line work with the Posca, which is technically acrylic ink, or acrylic-like ink. At any rate, just cutting in the form real quick, making sure all the main pieces are there, and then I usually let some of the line work show through, but since it's such a dark bird, it's kind of hard to see the line work, but it worked itself out though. And I'm air drying it real quick. It definitely helps me to keep the form solid where I'm happy with it. And the wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Now, the wonderful thing about doing this is that you can just slap color on it if you don't like it. And also, with this piece, I used a raw umber acrylic ink. Here I'm just laying down like a Payne's gray and like a light purple as well. Oh, I wanted to check and see how raw umber, well, not raw umber. I bought a raw umber acrylic ink from, I think it was Michael's. It was on clearance. And I wanted to use it as a ground because I wanted more of a natural tone, so that, you know, when it's toned up and it's not white, you choose your tones a little better, what your midtones should look like. And since I knew this was going to be a darker bird, I thought it would be a nice background to start with. But then as I was going, I was like, I really want to push this background to look like a moonlit, purpley background, I think. I had some Payne's gray, which is sort of, a bluish, slightly gray. How do I even describe it? If you don't know what Payne's gray is, it has like a bluish tint to it, but it is also gray, like a black and white gray, I'm trying to say, with like a blue tint to it. Some of them are like a purpley tint or even like a red tone to warm it up a little bit. And I did have some gray left over, so I was using that as sort of a highlight first and then worked in some of the Payne's gray. And then I decided I was going to use some purples for the sort of the color of the bird because of the atmosphere of the purple around him, as well as just trying to go more like a comic kind of look to it. I've been trying to use the blow dryer a lot more to get these layers to dry a little faster so I could work a little quicker, because I do have a lot of medium in these paints. The way I mix it is I have a 1-to-1 matte fluid plus it's Liquitex acrylics basics, or I use Master's Touch acrylics as well. And those are good paint, by the way. I don't know about the longevity of the paint, but as far as illustrating goes, it looks nice. Has good pigment quality, I think. But I mix that 1-to-1 with matte fluid from Liquitex, and it works fine. And then I put in a few drops of slow dry and a few drops of, I just throw in like a little bit of flow medium as well. About the same amount, maybe a little bit more than the slow dry. Anyway, the point is that I'm trying to do is create like an acrylic ink, or almost like an acrylic gouache. And seems to be, acrylic gouache exists, of course, but it's really expensive compared to doing it myself. And this allows me to have a little bit of variety. Like if I don't necessarily want it to be super thin, it doesn't have to be. If I want it to be a little thicker, I have a lot of options rather than being stuck to one specific kind of acrylic. So having a lot of mediums laying around is nice. So it lays down kind of really nicely in layers. Normally, if you're laying down thick acrylic, it's really hard. It's hard to layer it. How do I say this? It doesn't they're not transparent usually. They're pretty opaque. So doing it this way allows me to kind of treat them more like watercolor in terms of transparency, more like a marker in its blendability. And then when it dries, I have that longevity of acrylic. So it's a nice mix of everything. It's kind of a weird way of mixed media in a sense, because I'm trying to, I screwed up his eye there. I'm trying to, I'm trying to illustrate on canvas. I just thought it'd be an interesting approach because I don't see a lot of people doing that, at least not that I've seen in person. I'm not saying nobody does it at all, but I just wanted to offer something a little different in person. And this is kind of my go-to. I like illustration. Stuff that seems... It's very obvious that it's a picture, you know what I mean? Or a painting, and not so much trying to chase realism, but more like stylization. It's kind of my thing. But I still want the anatomy to be correct and all that good stuff. I want the sort of the stylistic choices to be apparent, like, you know, the ink lines or the brush strokes or any of that stuff. I like to have that stuff mixed in. Oh, here's an epic fail. I tried using this credit card like as if it were a silicone tool. There's an artist that I follow that uses it, John Silver Art. He has a silicone tool. I just decided I would try it to see if I get some textures. It did work a little bit, but I was like, I might as well just use my painting knife to get that effect right there. I could just get that with a painting knife. And I went a little heavy over his feet, and I was like, oh, crap, I'm not going to wipe that back so I can see where his feet are. And his little perch that he's sitting on. But this is right around the right tone I was looking for. So just darken it up a little bit. I want him to fade into the background a little. It's a blend a little bit of illustration with kind of impressionism in there. And I'm just using my brush to wipe. There we go. And I wipe it off. And then, yeah. So I'm just trying to get that background right. And then once I was done with him, I was like, well, there's a lot of negative space here. I do like the light around him. It almost looked like a moon. So I tried that, and I was like, no, that's a little too representative. Let me just go a little bit looser than that, see what happens. I guess I caught the painting down there with the credit card, so I'm covering up that little spot there. Yeah, I mean, it's just pushing and pulling. I'm just always experimenting, trying different stuff, and seeing what I like. And I definitely like seeing the paint strokes in there, and you know, very loose interpretation of the thing that you're painting. I think it makes it more interesting to look at as far as the painting is concerned. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's always the case, but for what I do, I prefer to do it that way. The wonderful thing about these acrylics versus oil is that because they dry so fast, you can just cover it up. If you're not happy with the color that you have, or if you need more color or whatever, you don't have to wait, you know, hours or days for it to completely dry or cure. Yeah, I lost some of the line work, like I said. I mean, some of it shows up, but I was like, oh, whatever, I'll just lean into it. There is some of it left, but very hard to see it. And then I just decided to go, or, you know, we're going to put a bush over here just so it gives them a little bit of something to lean against. Visually, it kind of frames them a little more, I felt like. And I just tried to highlight the bushes here and keep messing with it until I'm happy with it. But yeah, if you don't know, The Raven is a comic book that I've done in the past. I still need to actually finish. I have it finished. I just haven't digitally inked it all. And yeah, just been really busy doing other things. And here I'm just highlighting the outside. But anyway, that was the inspiration behind The Raven. I love these birds. And around this bird, the inspiration for this painting was because the raven, and of course, it's kind of my homage to the crow. And here's me trying to do this moon thing because I thought it might look cool, and then I was like, yeah, I don't really love that. So just kind of soften it up a little bit, and then it gives the impression that there's a light source back there rather than it actually being one. And now I've gotten to the point where I have to paint all the sides. And I've actually been drawing more around the side. Even though it's not fully gallery wrapped, it is wrapped, but it's not a huge gallery, like 1 inch or whatever, 1.5 inches thick. It's very thin. Yeah, this is where I thought it kind of looked like a moon. And I was like, let's try it. And I'm like, I don't really love that. And I think that actually worked better. This one, it took a lot more time than I expected to because I just kept pushing and pulling it. And I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more refined than I usually like to, but that's cool. It is what it is. Cute little raven. So I wanted to offer some more smaller stuff in person, so this was kind of the reason for this piece. And here, yeah, so I added in a little bit of detail here and again with the Posca because I wanted some of that line work to come back out. And add some of the shading. I think, yeah, I do it for the mouth, that's right. Or the beak, or however you want to think of it. The opening of his beak. So a little bit more refined illustration on his beak and around his feet and stuff. But other than that, it's pretty loose. And yeah, that's it. I appreciate you hanging in if you did, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.